and welcome back to another episode of The Book Stop. I'm your host Jen, and I'm very excited to talk about today's episode. But before we begin, there will be spoilers as we talk about major events that unfold within the story. In addition, each episode will have a list of trigger warnings in the description. Be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast, and show your support on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. And we're back again with another episode. I'm going to start out by saying I apologize for my voice. I'm just getting over a cold. I'm a bit snuffly still, but I'm very excited for today's episode. We are here today with Cody.
What's up, everybody?
So what are we going to be talking about? What book did you bring for us to talk about today?
Well, I brought the Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien. Well, aside from one of the main books I got into when I was in high school and elementary, actually the Hobbit I found in my elementary school. Figured I'd pick this one because, there's a lot of tidbits in it, and on top of that, there's also, sure you've watched the movie of it as well, so...
Yeah, the movie, I was very surprised to see how short this book was, because there's 3 movies that are 2-3 hours long, super long.
Give or take, depending on if you go for the regular or the extended version.
So when you're like, oh, I want to read The Hobbit, I was thinking it's going to be it length, that length of a book. But then I was like, so short. And they got 3 movies out of it, but...
And don't forget, too, that they also had the Desolation of Smaug for the book as well, so there's more in detail for the Desolation of Smaug that they probably used to resource for the second movie.
Yeah, most likely. But yeah, so The Hobbit was written in 1937 and then rewritten in 1951 to correlate better with the actual trilogy. And then this is classified as a children's book, but... There are speculations. Some people say it's a young adult. Some people say it's teens. So there is different speculations of how people view this book.
Yeah, at least young teenage kind of thing.
All right. So before we get started, we're going to play a little game. You're going to summarize this book in 30 seconds. Try your best.
So the summary of the book is that we get the opportunity to be introduced to a young Bilbo Baggins and his company of dwarves, where he goes on a journey with them. And an old man that, goes around in a cloak and a long hat. They're basically going on a journey to reclaim their home in the mountains, the lonely mountains.
Yeah, there's so much that happens in this book that we probably won't cover most of it, but I'm going to summarize it really quick for anybody who hasn't heard of this story. Hobbits, a race of small, human-like creatures, characteristically value peace, simplicity, and cozy homes, yet are capable of incredible feats of courage and resourcefulness. The unwilling hero of The Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, is persuaded to join Thorin and his 12 dwarfs, it's like he has kids, his 12 children, to recover their stolen treasure, which is guarded by the dragon Smaug. During the expedition, Bilbo finds a magical ring that renders the wearer invisible. The Hobbit is a story of Bilbo's maturing from a seeker of warmth and comfort to a fighter, however humble, for the greater good. Yeah, to start us out, what is your favorite quote from this book?
So, when we were first introduced with Gandalf meeting Bilbo at his house, I was just sitting there smoking out of his pipe. Bilbo just simply says, "Good morning." Gandalf's response was, "Do you wish me a good morning, or mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not, or that you feel good on this morning, or that it is a good morning to be good on?" And Bilbo's response was, "All of them at once."
Gandalf's very good at talking in riddles. I feel like that's kind of one of his focal points, is that he is seen as this being of answers, but he isn't going to give them to you straightforward.
Side note that Gandalf is, a mayor, so it's like a celestial spirit.
Mm-hmm, right.
So, for the reason behind me actually liking that is because there's a sense of humor to it, which... Good morning, we use good morning for a lot of different things. You cross someone across your path, you tell them good morning, good evening, whatever, and they respond back with good morning. It's just simply a way of to say hello, talk to you later, whatever. Mm-hmm. Using good morning or evening or good night is just different ways of expressing. I think that's kind of the reason why I actually like that.
Yeah. I like that he kind of tidbits to it being multiple different meanings. Especially nowadays, people just say it because it's a normal thing to say. It's just a natural reaction to any greeting. It goes along with any greeting. So I like that he kind of gave it a little bit more meaning. What do you mean exactly? And made him think about his words a little bit more. That quote kind of tails in with the quote that I have, which is literally the last page of the book. This is a conversation between Bilbo and Gandalf. Bilbo says, "Then the prophecies of the old songs have turned out to be true, after a fashion." "Of course," said Gandalf, "and why should they not prove true? Surely you don't believe the prophecies because you had a hand in bringing them about yourself? You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and your escapes were managed by pure luck, just for your sole benefit? You're a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I am very fond of you, but you are only quite a little fellow in a wide world after all." Gandalf really put Bilbo in his place, I'm just saying. He was like, yeah, you did a lot of things, and this mission or quest might not have been fruitful as it was if you weren't part of it, but again, everything happens for a reason, and there was a reason that you decided to go along. There was a reason that you did all the decisions that you made, and it's just like opens this whole door of like, is any of this real? Is anything, the choices that you make matter because everything happens for a reason?
It also brings in a quote from a different book of tokens, which was Gandalf's quote of, "This is just a small rock that's going to create the avalanche to bigger things," basically. Mm-hmm. So Bilbo ultimately was meant, in a sense, to go on that adventure. Mm-hmm. And they progress throughout the adventure. He learns that there's more that he can do, but I guess he gets a little overconfident with it because of what he had found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other quote that I brought, which is a quick one that I really liked, but Bilbo says, "So comes snow after fire, and even dragons have their end." Just saying that after so much negativity and bad juju and bad impacts, you're still going to have those moments of relief, and you're going to have that moment where everything kind of calms down, even though you have these demons or dragons that you have to face. After you face them, then they're eventually all going to have to go away. So after you face them, you're going to feel a lot more relief at the end. You just got to keep pushing forward. So what are some things that you liked about this book?
Overall, I like the writing style of it. Mm-hmm. Even when I first read it, I was kind of confused with some of the words because of how elaborate Tolkien's words were. Also, when I heard it through an audiobook, which I was like, all right, nowadays I understand more and more of the words to the point where I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. As far as the likes of the book, there's a lot of different situations, like the trolls, which was a really good one. It's a really funny one, in my opinion, with the trolls and Gandalf sitting there confusing them and all that stuff. That was a nice little tidbit. There was also, he was having to rush to the, I think, Green Dragon to meet up with the dwarves to get ready onto this adventure. And then there was also when he first meets Smaug and the conversation with Smaug, which kind of stuck with some of the tales that you were to speak with dragons. You aren't supposed to allow to know exactly who you are because they can use that to their advantage as far as mental battles with you. Mm-hmm. So how he was trying his best to avert utilizing all of the stuff that he's gone through to just kind of throw him off with the mind game, I thought that was pretty fascinating as well.
Yeah, some things that I liked about this book, it's an easy read. So I never read any of the Lord of the Rings book growing up. I only got into them when I started the podcast. Like, I read the first two of the trilogy and then this one, and then I have plans to read the other ones, which I never thought I would ever read them, but here I am. But this one is surprisingly easy. I was really worried because I thought it was going to be a very dense book and very, filled with so much lore, which was some of the complaints I had about the other books, is that it's so lore-based and there's so much in it that it's easy to get lost. But this one's very simple. It's very easy. It lays it out very well for you. Maybe that's just because it's a children's book and I just can't read that well. I don't know. But I also really like the sense of knowing what's going to happen, because he does foreshadow a lot in this one, which I can give or take on, but I like that we know what's going to happen in the trilogy. Says that it's the prelude to the trilogy, but when the ring gets introduced, what that exactly means, and Gandalf stands on things, how in the future, I guess technically for them, that it all kind of plays out. I like that knowing part of it.
You get introduced to the ring, the one ring in here, but they don't tell you that is the one ring, which is nice because leaves you with curiosity. If you have read the books before and you're wondering, how Bilbo came across this ring, you read The Hobbit and you're like, makes sense now.
Yeah, it all plays out.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, when you read it, the Hobbit first, you don't really call any significance to it that much. You're like, okay, it's a ring that can turn you invisible. But you don't really know about it until you get to the Lord of the Rings. And you're like, okay, explains it now.
Wait until you get into this,
Silmarillion?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that one is very dense, too. I'm nervous on that one.
There's a lot to that one book, but The Lord of the Rings, if you read that, you read the Hobbit, if you read, some of the other tales as well, the lore gets put together, and the respect for the Lord of the Rings itself, I feel, just comes into a greater aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. I also really like that, obviously this is kind of like the tip of the iceberg for this world. It's a good introduction book for what Tolkien makes in the rest of his books. So it's a good just introduction, get you to kind of hold your hand through the world for a little bit until they kind of throw you into the rest of it. But there are some dislikes that I had with this one. I think there was just too many people with not enough backgrounds or connection to them. We have the most connection with Thorin as we learn about his past and like what the quest is actually for. But with the other 12 people, I couldn't even tell you most of their names. I think there was a Killy in there and a Tilly or Willy.
Tilly and Killy.
Yeah. I like that all of them rhymed and made it a little tiny bit easier. There wasn't any character development either for them specifically or with Bilbo. So I don't know. I think it was too many people. I don't think there's enough female representation in this book, which I complained about when I talked about the Two Towers. At least I didn't notice any female characters in this book. I don't think there was any.
Not in this book, no.
I don't know. That was just something that I picked up that I didn't love. I wish they could have thrown in a couple. Maybe make the dragon a female. I don't know. They could have done something to kind of put that representation in there. But that's just my own little tidbit. And then what are some things that you didn't like about this book?
Well, when you mention character development, I do kind of agree with that. Like, we learned the characters' names, Balin, Dwalin, Glowin, which you later find out that Glowin was Gimli's dad. There's also Bolfer Bomber, but there's not really a lot of, like you say, character development or character background for those characters. I'm sure if it was in the other books, maybe, but the only ones that you really know a lot about is Bilbo with his, Baggins and Took's side. You learn about his, I think it's his grandfather or his great-great-grandfather Took that was in some war that, supposedly created Goth. But character development was, like I said, that's the main thing I just didn't quite like about the book. I feel like there could have been a little bit more interaction with the creature Gollum as well. The title, Riddles in the Dark, was actually a really good aspect to that. Mm-hmm. Where he would sit there and he'd have the riddle game with Gollum. Mm-hmm. I think we could have learned more about, what he meant with this birthday present, like how he came across it, but you learn more about that through The Lord of the Rings, so it is what it is. But there wasn't a lot of battles in this either, which was a little kind of on the downside as well. I mean, you get to see them battle through a couple of goblins, mm-hmm. and then when they escape from their mountain, they get caught in trees by a pack of wargs. And then there is, the dragon act at the end. This one was definitely more fun, I guess, than the rest of them. And this might be just because it's towards children. Mm-hmm. So that's why there wasn't as many, fight scenes and battle scenes. But yeah, I noticed that as well. The action scenes were very, I guess you'd say, low budget. They didn't really have a lot of pow to it as, the rest of them do. That was something that I also picked up on. That I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of we did this and we got out type deal. That's the one thing I'll say that, the movies did do justice for. They brought out more of the battles for the book. Yeah. So. It's trying to reach out to their demographic. They weren't making these movies for kids. They weren't kids' movies. They were making them for the adults that read these as kids and grew up. It's trying to give it more of an adult feel to it. So that's why they also introduced, the love story. Brought back more the famous characters that everyone loves in the other ones. Yeah, and you'll find the Hobbit. I mean, obviously Legolas and the other elf lady was never in it. So, which mm-hmm. is you look at that and you look at the movie, you're like, they belong in the Lord of the Rings series, not this book. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that read this book and watched the movie hated the movies so much. It wasn't necessarily a hate. It was more of really, just kind of really. Yeah, because this is a child's book. Typically, children's books are written for specific reasons, and a huge one that a lot of children's books are written about is coming-of-age stories. And this, obviously, is a coming-of-age story of Bilbo. Even though he is an older man, he's not a child or a teenager.
Hobbit. Yeah, it's about his personal growth as he kind of takes on this journey. In like at the beginning, Bilbo's very lonely, and yes, he's content and has everything that he needs, but he doesn't have anybody around him, and he doesn't feel like he has a drive for anything. And so this book is just him kind of like coming to understand that there's more to life than just his hobbit hole and having a cup of tea and making sure his book is on his armchair when he gets home. He needs other things to kind of push him towards this big center of life.
I'd say that's roughly hits it on the nail. I mean, you're looking more of the aspect of how something unexpected can come into your life and change it so drastically. Mm-hmm. He is very content with his lifestyle. I didn't quite get the lonely part, but it's more of like he's content with what he has, but he kind of wishes that there was more. I think it was more because even though he is a Baggins, which, you know, is a family of high value in the Shire, the Took is also part of his bloodline as well. Mm-hmm. So if you knew anything about the Tooks on his side of the family, they were very adventurous. They were, for the most part, stories were made for. And I think he just kind of wished that he had something of that value, something to just be like, I have, you know, these adventures. I have like these small little stories I can embellish to make them grand. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like he wished that he had that, which I think that's where you come along with Gandalf and the dwarves, bringing him into that adventure. And even though it was more than what he bargained for throughout with getting the dwarves out of certain situations that they got into, and mm-hmm. there were a number of them, mm-hmm. he learns that, you know, at the end of the journey that, you know, now he's not the same hobbit that he once was. For better or worse, he has definitely changed. And with the Ring of Power coming into his grasp, it takes it a step further.
Yeah, and then we can kind of see him as he ages. And at the beginning of the first book of The Lord of the Rings, you see Frodo and his interaction with him, and kind of makes it a little bit more special when you see Bilbo's relationship with Frodo. Yeah, I also like that this book doesn't try to be bigger than it is. I think that there's a lot of morals in this book, but they don't like dig any deeper into them. They kind of do surface level, like they talk about greed and the power of friendship and loyalty and stuff. They don't like go in and like throw it in your face. They kind of subtly put it there. It's very black and white and like, hey, these are what they are. Do what you will with this information. Because some children's books, they go too far with it and they kind of like shove it down your throat. But this book, it's very just on the surface.
It's like the in the movie series, I did like, you know, how they kept Gandalf as, you know, he would just give constant proverbs. He didn't believe that force of strength that keeps the evil at bay, but the everyday small deeds of everyday people. I think, you know, that relates to this book big time, and that really kind of sums up this book, because, you know, when you look at Bilbo's deeds to the dwarves and how he cared for them were as if they were kind of like one of his own or one of his family, and, you know, how the dwarves themselves took care of each other because of them being a family.
Mm-hmm. Friendship and loyalty is like a theme that is in all of the Lord of the Rings like trilogy. Whether it's with Gimli and Legolas and Frodo and Sam, like there is a legacy of friendship that kind of goes through. And I like that this book keeps that theme with it too.
But yeah, I just want to take a second here to shout out the wonderful Patreon subscribers. So a huge shout out to Bree P, Nick W, and Lulu. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys supporting me and supporting this podcast. And I have a fun time making it, and I'm glad that other people are really enjoying it.
Yeah, so who would you say in this book is your favorite character?
That's a tough one, because I do like a number of them. But if I had to pick an all-time favorite, it'd probably have to be Bilbo, just because of the story is mainly about him and how he changes the course of how it could have went. But at the same time, I do kind of like the Golem a little bit, though.
Gollum? Mm. Yeah. I also said Bilbo was my favorite character. I do like Gollum, but I wish there was more for him. Does Gollum have his own, like, section dives into his history a little bit more in the, like, Silmarillion or anything?
I think, if I recall correctly, maybe in the book of The Return of the King you might learn something about him. But I mean, I know the movies, they kind of go into his life and you learn that his name is Smeagol. But I don't remember if there was anything mentioned about him in the Return of the King actual book itself. It could be in the appendages.
Yeah, I like Bilbo. Obviously, he's our main character, and I feel like that's kind of the most information we got was from him. I was going to go with Thorin for a little while, but then he got a little too greedy, and I wasn't here for it. When I started to actually like Bilbo, because at the beginning I didn't love him. I respected him, but I didn't love him. But when the spider scene happened, that's when I started to respect him, when he saves, like, their lives after being, like, cocooned by the spiders, and he was the only one that could get around. That's when I kind of was like, okay, I respect him now.
Probably would have went with Gandalf, but we didn't see a lot of him in it.
He literally dipped away. He's like, I'm gonna force Bilbo to take my place in this party. I'm gonna get you guys so far, and then I'm gonna yeet myself from the situation, because I have other things to attend to. Which is another thing that I wanted to talk about, was like Gandalf's pretty much view and his presence in the whole series together. From my outside perspective, I'm not reading any of the books and not really watching any of the movies, Gandalf felt like the main character. Like, from the way that it was all kind of advertised, it felt like Gandalf was the superior being and being the main focus of the story, and clearly he's not, as he's barely in it. I guess I kind of feel a little turned around, I guess.
Disappointed with it?
Not disappointed, just like turned around, because I'm like expecting him to be a main focus, and I get that he's just supposed to be a guide for them. Like, he's not a crutch for them to lean on, he's a guide to help them get to where they need to go, and then he's like, Ava la vista, and then just dips out. Kind of expected him to be in it a little bit more, and then he just wasn't. And that's kind of how he was in the rest of the series. He gets somewhere he needs to go, and then he dips out, and then he comes back when they needed him the most.
Yeah. I mean, it is portrayed for him. If you read more into the lores with Gandalf, you read and you understand what kind of being that he is, as he is not really human being. He's more of a, I guess you can call him a celestial or a spiritual being, but portrayed as an old man. But he's also, a member of the Courts of the Five Wizards, which you learn throughout the series of the books.
I don't know, I'm glad that he's not in it a lot and that they don't focus on him the whole time, but I also would like to see him a little bit more, because like he's this magical, powerful being, but I've yet to really see it. So I just wanted to see a little bit more of Gandalf's impact, understand the point of it, but I also want to see how it kind of portrays in the next one. Like, I haven't read the last book yet, so I'm excited to see how Gandalf, his views kind of change, and how people change his view of him. Because he can't be just a stagnant character. Like, there has to be some kind of incline or downfall, one way or the other, with people's view on him. So I'm excited to see how it kind of all falls out.
I think the mainstream view of Gandalf, I feel like for most of the mainstream population, is because of the movies. His iconic quotes from the movies and all that stuff. I think that's what made him a popular character for, all your mainstream stuff versus the books. Because those who read the books, they see that he is a very powerful character, and you learn more about him reading, like The Return of the King, Two Towers, and all that.
So who would you say in this book is your favorite relationship?
As brief as it was, it would have to be with Gollum and Bilbo, because of their little competition with riddles, and got me fascinated with riddles to begin with. I just kind of love that relationship between them.
Yeah, I wish there was a little bit more, as we said earlier, but that was the most entertaining part of the story, was trying to figure out the riddles yourself, and then it gets you more inclined to, like, same, like, I was like, oh, I want to look more into riddles now, so I try to figure them out. So it's a fun little, like, teaser in there. And it's fun to watch, like, them kind of go back and forth, because Bilbo gets lost in the caves, and Gollum's like, oh, I'll show you a way out, but you gotta answer my riddles. I don't know. And then he was
to be fair, he did ask me a question.
Yeah.
So.
Is there ever a reunion between Bilbo and Gollum in the next books? Oh, wow, that's messed up. There should be a reunion where they're on a cliff, and they have their arms wrapped on around each other, and they're answering riddles, and whoever doesn't answer it gets thrown off the cliff. That's how they should have a reunion.
Nah, he becomes Gollum becomes a very mainstream character for Frodo.
So I said my favorite relationship was Gandalf and just the world around him. It's so fascinating to me how everyone just kind of falls to their feet for him. Not in the literal sense that they actually fall to his feet.
Figuratively speaking.
Yeah, they kind of worship him as being this strong, powerful wizard. So many people just love him, and like you see it a lot in the first book, especially with like Frodo, how he pretty much like worships him and puts him on such a high pedestal. And in this one, you see it a little bit, not nearly as much as from like Frodo's perspective. I don't know, it was very weird. I need to research more about it so I can understand it a little bit better. I just don't get the hype. I said that in my last podcast. I just don't get the hype of Gandalf. I get that he's this magical being and he's like thousands of years old or something, and he's not even a wizard. He's just like this force of nature, but
technically speaking, when they made the movies, he wasn't necessarily. I don't think he really was meant to actually be so involved with everything, with all the battles and everything. But he was, like you said, he's more of a guide, honestly, and that was mainly the role when he was sent down, was just to simply kind of be a guide in a short sense of it, be there to kind of just help stay back the forces of evil that's going to later become the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Do more research on it later on down the road if you want, and just kind of get an understanding of Gandalf's history.
I want to know more about his history and like his origin stories and like.
Oh, then you're going to go into like the. How do you pronounce it again?
The Silmarillion?
Yeah, I can never get that word right.
It just rolls off the tongue. I am going to eventually read that. I don't know if it's going to be for the pod or if it's going to be just my own personal research. So speaking of riddles, and you said that you love them so much, I have a game for you. So I'm going to read off some riddles and you just try to figure them out.
This should be fun.
Yeah.
Are these riddles from the book?
No, these are just, other riddles. So, what can run but never walk? Has a mouth, but never talks. Has a head, but never weeps. Has a bed, but never sleeps.
Sounds like a river.
Yeah, that's a river. Next one. What can fill a room, but takes up no space?
What can fill up a room and take no space? Air?
Close.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That's a good guess, but it's not air.
I'll have to give up on that one.
It's a light.
Oh.
Yeah. Air was a good one, though. Next one is what goes through cities and fields but never moves?
Paths.
I guess I'll give it to you. It's technically road, but a path also is the same thing.
Well, originally I was going to go with road, but at the same time, you don't really have a road in the field. You can have a path in the field.
Yeah. Depends on which kind of field you're in.
No, this is true.
If you're on like a track field, there's a road.
Yes.
Alright. I am always hungry and will die if not fed, but whatever I touch will soon turn red.
A flame is always hungry. So fire?
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah. Alright, next one is, what can you hold in your right hand but never in your left hand?
Your left elbow? I mean, you can hold anything on your left-handed arm.
Is that your answer?
I'm just gonna go with that's gonna have to be my answer.
Your left elbow? It's technically your left hand. Can't hold your left hand in your left hand.
Wow.
2 in a corner, 1 in a room, 0 in a house, but 1 in a shelter.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to give up on that one.
The letter R.
Okay. That was pretty good.
What can travel all around the world without leaving its corner?
I'm gonna have to give up on that one. What is it? You're
A
frying my brain here.
A stamp. Go all over the world, but never leaves the corner of
It's
the...
sad that I've actually heard that before.
Alright.
Alright, well, let's see if you can figure one out then.
Okay, I'm not good at riddles, but we'll try.
What can you keep after giving it to someone?
I was thinking words, like speaking. Is it?
Your words, yeah.
Oh, shoot! Yes! I'm so good at riddles, it's crazy. Nothing can stop me. Alright, yay! That was fun! So, what is something that you personally would have done different if you were writing this book? Any kind of missed opportunities you think that you could think of?
Yeah, there's a couple. Character build is definitely one of them. But again, I know this is a children's book. more time with our Gandalf, more time with Gollum. I think those were missed opportunities in my opinion. It's just, I think there could have been a little bit more about those 3 factors that we could have seen. But overall, I'd say it was still a pretty good book regardless.
Yeah, that's kind of along the same, streamline that I'm thinking. Either just have less dwarfs in the party, because I feel like they didn't really have a purpose, some of them. Or just know more about them. Give me more than just their name and that they're dwarves. I want to know a little bit more about their backstory. Just personally, as somebody that, when I read a book, I care about the characters more than I care about the plot. And I want to know more about what's going on with them and why they're here, why they're part of the party, and their history and stuff. So, but again, that would make the book so much more long. So I totally get why he didn't do that. At the same time, I can't tell if it was a good thing that he didn't or not.
No one can truly get into the minds of the writers. We can only hope to travel through them.
Yep, so that's why this is based on our opinion. Kind of closing in on the pod. Before we head out, we are going to do one last thing. So we're going to rate the book, but we do it a little bit different here on the Book Stop. We kind of make up our own thing. So I would give The Hobbit by J.R.R. to Tolkien 5 Gandalfs rolling a nat 20 on his persuasion check out of 10. Like we said, it's a great beginning book to kind of set up the world, and I think that it was a fun adventure to kind of follow along with Bilbo as he's coming of age in the story and understanding his own bravery and courage. But there were some things that kind of pulled me back and made it not all for one kind of book for me. But what would you rate it?
I'd have to give it 6 singing dwarves out of 10.
A lot of singing.
Did love the songs that they did put in here. I did like the overall story of it. I just kind of wish that there was more character build, a little bit more relationship build. Just overall, just a little bit of extra stuff here and there. Because, yes, it could have made it a little bit more dense, but at the same time, if you're going to add that many characters in, you may want to expect it to be just a little bit more dense than what it actually is going to be. Overall, I still say it was a pretty good book.
Yeah, I don't think having a lot of characters is a bad thing. One of my favorite books, it has a cast of 20 characters. And it's not a bad thing to have abundance of characters, because then you have a lot of chances for your readers to latch on to one of them. But you have to give them more than just a name. We need to know more about them. I can see how it could be kind of a drawback for this book. Alright, so thank you so much for coming on to the Book Stop and talking about The Hobbit.
No problem.
We don't have anything scheduled right now, I believe, for any future episodes. But if you guys want to see Cody back on, interact with this episode, share, follow, all that good stuff.
Just leave us a like.
Heck yeah, and we'll see you next time.
Toodles.
Thank you for turning the pages with us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support by leaving a review, sharing the episode, and following the podcast on Instagram at The Bookstop Podcast. Join us on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Hope you are too.